On this episode of the Nugget Project, we rip out our dashboard and we find a use for our old air conditioning fan. Alrighty gang, we're back with our little blue friend, and one exciting thing we've got going on is we have our gauge pods ready. So I've had a lot of people hitting me up and asking me about these. For anybody who doesn't know what the hell I'm talking about, on the dashboard here I have replaced both the air vents with these gauge pods, so I can have the gauges in the center. They're tilted towards the driver and they fit really well. They're a cool little thing. So originally I just made them for myself. I wasn't planning on making them for anybody else, but I've had so many people hit me up that I figured I'd help out the little race community and start making them. So these are 3D printed. They're made out of I print them up in PETG. PETG is kind of it's a really strong material. It's really nice. It's a bit better than ABS. It's strong, but it's got a bit of a flex in it, so it'll flex before it cracks. It's also quite heat resistant. So I print these at about 260 degrees Celsius. So on a dashboard, you know, you're not going to get anywhere near those temperatures, so they won't go soft or anything like that. These are designed for a 76mm gauge. If I get enough call, I will try and make them for a 52mm, but to be honest, 52mm gauges are too small. We should be making... Oh no, sorry, not 76, 67mm. My bad, 67mm gauges, which is what I've got in here. It's a good size. The 52s are just a bit small. So yeah, anyway... they fit my gauges really well, but you know, you might need to run a bit of tape around your gauge to make it tighter, or sand these to make it a bit thinner. I don't think all the brands came together and made sure it's exactly that size. Yeah, so anyway, I've got these available now. I'm doing them very cheap. They take about 8 hours to print the pair, so it's not a slow process. And I'm pretty much just doing them to pay for the materials, the wear on the printer, because I've got to replace belts, nozzles, heating elements, things like that. Especially as I've already got, I think, about 10 people interested in these, so it's going to be quite a bit of non-stop printing. And then any money I do make on top of that will go straight into the Nuggets to help me finish it. Anyway, enough peddling my wares. Let's get into working on this car. So what I think I'm going to do today is I'm going to take this dashboard out. So when Rob does the roll cage in this car, we're going to have the cage come down, follow the A-pillar, and go down into here somewhere. So we've already got a little bit of a gap, but we will need to cut this out and allow the cage to go in there. So we take it out so Rob can get the cage in, and then when we get the car back, we'll cut up the dash to make it all fit. So for now, we need to pull out all the heater controls and the switch panel again, my little fuse box, and get this out of his way. So I'll probably just slap a time lapse on and you can watch me muppet around with screws and try not to break this dash, which, as all XLs have, is cracked. But I've got an idea to fix that. We'll get back to that later. And here we go. It is out. It's actually not that much holding it in. It's only a few screws, and you got the old school speedo cable, which was a bit tight to get out. It's just there's a lot of... They obviously put the wiring loom into this dash and then put the dash in. So a lot of the parts you got to kind of get a screwdriver in behind it and stuff like that. But anyway, it's out. It wasn't that bad. Yeah, so while I've got it out as well, so we've taken this out obviously so Rob can put in the roll cage, which will come down next to the main support here and down to the floor. So we'll cut the dash out around that. But while I've got all this out, I'm going to get rid of some of these cables. Like I've got a lot of stuff like this is the interior light loom. I don't need that. And there's like the light for the glove box and all these things I just don't need anymore. So I'm going to pretty much take all that out and wrap it all up. The radio loom, I don't need that. So we're just going to cut everything out, clean it all up, Obviously it's pretty dirty in here, so I'm going to clean it up too. And the next thing I'm going to look at is, so we've got our heater adapters here, which works great for me, but it's going to be a bit of a bitch for anybody else to use. So this side's really clean and works well, but that side I really want to neaten up. So I'm going to pull it off, remeasure it, and try and work out a way to make it easier for somebody else to install, so I can make them up for you guys. So that is one of my next jobs. Also, I've got to remember where all these screws go, so I'm going to try and put all the screws back in the holes where they came out of. Yay. Sweet, so I've taken my adapters out and I've had a look at how to make it easier to install, and I think I've got a solid plan for both sides. So I've got the day off sort of tomorrow, so I'm going to go through and mock some new ones up on CADs and test some print ones. Oh my god. Learn words, Matt. Print some test ones, and if they fit, then we'll put them up for grabs. So, next thing I want to do, which is a bit of an idea, I know some people are going to go, why are you doing this? I'm going to turn the radio off for starters. Cool. So, in our engine bay we have our main fan, and then we also have the fan for the air conditioning. Obviously we don't have aircon anymore, so I'm just going to wire it up so it's just a secondary fan. Now I could just run a relay and wire that up to the other fan, so when that kicks in, they both kick in. I'm just not too sure on how strong all the electrics and the cables are for that. So I'm just going to wire up a manual switch, and I can just manually flick it on if I want more cooling. It's a simple solution and it should be fairly easy. So, for anybody that doesn't know much about electronics, I don't either, but you can't just run, well, you can run cables directly to this. So I could just go power switch straight to the fan, on and off, right? Problem with that is, because these motors take a lot of power, you need to run thick cables, which means I've got to run thick cables all the way into the cabin. I've got to run a big switch, because obviously a lot of voltage is going through it, and when you flick on a switch, they arc a little bit. So you need a big switch to handle that much power. Or the easy alternative is what all manufacturers do, is you run a relay. So all the relay is a remote switch. I have one around here somewhere. Where is it? Here we go. This guy here, this is a relay. So all that is basically a bigger switch. So in our cabin we can run, I've got some spare ones actually, run another one of these guys. Come over here. One of these little switches in our switch panel. And all that'll be is just a power that'll run through to the engine bay. And we can run thin wiring because it's not high voltage, because all that is doing is powering up this switch instead of powering up the entire fan. We'll run, we'll put a relay, I don't know, wherever, over here somewhere. And then we just run a power cable directly to that fan and the earth and everything. So when we flick that switch on inside, that'll go click, turn this one on, which then turns the fan on. All I've got to do now is just pull the wires off and have a look at the wiring and figure out which one's earth, which one's power, all that junk. And then we can have a secondary fan to keep us cool in summer. So let's have a crack at that. Alrighty gang, so I know I'm going to get a lot of eye rolls from the people that know stuff, but there's a lot of people who watch this who don't know stuff. So I'm going to impart a little bit of stuff I know, because I don't know a whole heap, about multimeters. So a lot of people see this and they're completely terrified because it's all scary and there's lots of dials and numbers and junk. But it's really, the basic stuff with this is really basic and it's really handy. So what a multimeter does is basically we can test currents, we can test voltage, and we can find earths and pretty much everything. It's a really simple bit of kit if you know the basics of it. I don't know all the advanced stuff. All I pretty much use it for is for finding power and finding earths. So you can get one of these. I've got a cheapo one at home. This is my dad's one. It's a little bit better, but my one at home, I think I paid about 15 bucks for it, 10 bucks for it. It's super cheap and I've used it so much. So you've got DCV and ACV. DC stands for direct current and AC stands for alternating current. In cars, we have direct current because it comes from a battery. It's a direct voltage. In houses, you're using an alternating current because it actually alternates and pulses and junk. I don't know the technical terms. But pretty much anything to do with the car, we'll be using direct current. So I set it to 20. I think that goes up to 20 volts. This is for sort of more larger applications when you're looking at really high voltage. You only need 20, and if you want to find yourself a positive, stick the black one on a ground somewhere. So, you know, just stick it on a bolt or on a piece of metal, and then you just use the red one to find your power. So when I was going through my ignition barrel and trying to find which ones were the main power and everything, you can touch it. You can see that with the ignition off, there's nothing. Turn the ignition to accessories, and it lights up to 12 volt here, which means that's our ignition source. If we put this on our battery now, battery will be like 12.5 volt or something like that. That's pretty standard. And then when the car's started and it's charging, because there's more juice going into it, you should be sitting around 14, I think 13.8 or 14.2 volts or something like that. So it's also a good way to test to see if your alternator's working and all that sort of stuff. Really basic bit of kit. For this, what I'm trying to find is, so down here, this is our plug for that secondary fan. All I need to know is basically which one's the earth. So I'm going to cut the power lead and I'm going to run my own power lead, but I may as well use the earth. It's already there. So what I do is set it to resistance. So resistance is basically letting us know that it's a circuit. So if we put these together, we've got 1, no circuit, put them together, 0, 0. That means there is no resistance and that is a circuit. So if we want to test an earth, I'll put this down here. You can test it on pretty much anything, you know. We'll put it on, oh god, or something that's actually conductive might help. We'll put it on either side of this nut here. You'll see the number goes down to 0 because there's no resistance, because that is now a circuit, okay? So with our power cable here, we stick I'll stick this on an earth. I'm going to use this little bolt here because I know that that is a proper earth. Oh, this is so hard to do. And then if I get that, holy shit. Tell you what I'm going to get, a little cheat. I'm going to use an alligator clip, 1 second. Alright, if you need to free up your hands, these are fantastic. So I can put that on there, and I'll put this onto an earth. It needs to be obviously clean metal, not painted or rusty. Alright, so I found a semi-decent earth over there. So we get our cable and plonk him in there, and there we go. We still got a tiny bit of resistance because it's going all the way through the engine block and everything, but that is showing that that is our earth side. And if we look down the other side of the connector, we can see that's the black wire there. So we can use the black wire as our earth. So I'll cut this connector off, and now I can run our power directly onto that and plug it straight in, and we maintain the old plug. All is right in the world. Okay, so to make this a bit neater, instead of running a cable all the way over to here, I'm going to trace the power cable back over the other side. I've actually traced it to under the car pretty much as close as I can get, as I don't want to pull the airbox and everything apart to access near the fuse box. But at least it's a bit neater. So what I've done is I've just stripped the cable back a bit to see if it's the right one. So I've clamped onto that with a little alligator clip, and now I'm just going to stick this in the power. As we can see on our multimeter, it has gone down to 0, 0, which is our resistance, so that means that's the same cable. And that is awesome. So now I can just connect up a power to that. The earth's already connected, and then that'll be our secondary fan. Sick. Alright, here's where we're at. So I traced that cable down, and it's just under the car here. So I just pulled it out of the loom. I've connected up my new cable and soldered and heat shrinked it together. And then I'll tuck all that back inside its little plastic loom. Oh god. And then that cable comes up here, and we'll hook up our relay. Alrighty, I skipped a lot of that, but we do have the wiring somewhat in. So here is our relay. Our power is all hooked up to the fan. There's our relay, and out of that we have the main feed that goes to the fan. This guy is going to be our main power feed. Now the reason this isn't hooked up yet is I'm going to hook it up to the main feed from the battery, and I just want to put an inline fuse in just in case things go south. So I don't have one at the moment, I've got one at home. So I'll bring that in, and now I can just tap that in with a little blade fuse. On the other side of that, we've got our earth, which will screw onto that earth point there. And then our main cable that goes through into the cabin. And I haven't hooked it up yet, but that's it there. And then that'll be next to those switches there. So all the switches do, power that up, that sends, and that comes from a accessories voltage which means if I turn the car off, the fan won't be on as well, which is good, so I can't leave the fan on by mistake. So that'll power to the relay will switch on, and then the fan will be on, so I can just manually turn it on and off if I want a bit more cooling. That is cool. Terrible. Okay, now what I'm doing is I'm going to do a servicing episode on this, so I'm just trying to get hold of around the back here, down there somewhere. Oh god, all the way down there. You can't even see them, don't worry about it. There's two hoses that go to the heater core. I'm still running the heater in this so I can demist the windscreen, but they are super gross, old, and they're leaking, and I hate them. Problem is I'm finding them a bit tricky to get hold of, so I'm going to pull them off, and then when I do find somebody who will order them for me, at least I've got the old ones there as an example, and I can say yes, they're the right ones, or no, so I don't have to run around and go back and all that sort of junk. So yes, I'm just draining the coolant at the moment. Also, the bottom of the radiator's got these little taps, dual drain taps. A lot of people just block them off and just pull the hose off, which I normally do too, but this one was leaking. That's the old one here. All the seal has been pushed down and it's cracked. It's just someone's been grilling it tight, now it's all shagged. So I had my old radiator with a better seal on it, so I'll put that on. Hopefully now that won't leak. Great news, we're just letting this drip and then I'll get those hoses off. Excellent. Okay, after much fighting, I've got those two hoses off that I need to replace, but holy cow, their heater core is mangled. I'm going to try and get the camera down there. I think the last Gorilla that worked on this car, have a look at those two. I got those hoses off like just twisting them myself, so that wasn't me. Somebody has absolutely mangled it. Like, it's a bit of corrosion, but yeah, that sucks. The hoses were still sealing at that end, it was fine, but I'm still debating, I might try and get hold of another heater core. Since I've already got, you know, everything out there, it's not hard to get to, and switch it out with a new one, because that is super shagged. Some Gorilla with some pliers or multi-grips or something dumb. Anyway, we'll get these in the meantime, and we'll have a think about that heater core, what to do with it. Okay, so the last time I was doing this was about 2 weeks ago. This is how long these videos take to make. And it's not because I'm struggling with parts or anything, it's just time. I actually was out working the whole time. I've been away, I've been in Perth and Sydney. The Sydney stuff was cool. We were doing a shoot for BMW for the release of the new M2 competition, the M5 competition, which I got to drive both of them. Very cool cars. I actually did a bit of footage of Stephen Richards sliding around in the M2. Fortunately, the cars are embargo at the moment because they're not released and the journos have to do all that, so I can't use the footage, which is sad because I thought that was pretty cool for you guys, but que sera, sera. So where we left off is we had all this wired up, but we're just waiting for an inline fuse. Ta-da, inline fuse. So this is a little waterproof one. We've got a blade fuse in there. So all I need to do now is tap into our main battery line, put the inline fuse in there, solder those two together, and then stick a switch in and we can test our fan and hopefully it works. Hopefully it doesn't blow up. Right, we'll find out. Done. So we've got our blade fuse and our relay all hooked up. It's wired into the battery feed. Now the next step is we just need to wire in our switch. So there's our other switches. Here is our power cable. So we now just need to run a feed from our fuse box to our switch into that, and hopefully the fan should work. Let's give it a crack. Alrighty gang, wiring these things up is super easy. You'll notice though that these have 3 wires instead of 2, so you can imagine a standard switch, it's just got an in and an out, and the switch just breaks or connects to connection. Makes sense. These ones though have a little blue LED light in it, so it needs another line. I'll show you here, it's very simple. So the top one, the bottom one there is positive, so that's your main power feed. That one there is your output. So say if this was a normal switch,
that's your power in, that's your power out to your lights, to your fan, to whatever else. This guy here is an earth, so it's a standard earth that just goes to the ground on the chassis. All that does is give us an earth for that light to work, so it's pretty simple. So you can see with these ones we've got the link between the two. All that is we're sharing an earth between the switches, and with this one I'm just going to do another loop and share an earth to this one. So we've got our blue light. You don't have to hook that up, it just means you won't have your pretty little light on the end of your switch. So now we've got our new connectors, so we'll make up another earth line and we'll swing that across.
Ryan Little.
Alrighty, moment of truth. So we turn our ignition to accessories. So I'll switch here. I don't know if you guys can hear that. That sounds like a fan. That is an AC fan running. Good times. Looks like our blue light isn't working on here, so I'm going to check the earth, or maybe the switch is a bit dud. Now if we turn off our ignition, fan goes off as well. Winner winner, chicken dinner. Alrighty gang, so hopefully you enjoyed that video. I know it was a bit of a basic one this time, but we got the fan working, we got the dashboard out, and we're getting ready for our next episode. Now I'm not too sure what I'm going to do. I might be doing a servicing episode. I'm still waiting on some bits. I've also got another cool thing in the mix for some of the interior bits, but I won't say any more. So yeah, we'll see what happens with the next vid, but hopefully it should be up within the next week or so. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.